and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Southern Crown Partners Incorporated know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Mick Ultra's crisp and refreshing taste in hand. It's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water. Freeman Boat Works and Trilogy Outdoors are proud to announce the addition of Freeman Boat Works to our family of incredible partners. Billy Freeman and his team at Freeman Boat Works epitomize the American dream. From building the first boat in Billy's backyard to a 150,000 square foot state-of-the-art manufacturing plant over the past 15 years, they are building one of the most sought-after boats in the U.S. and beyond. These incredible fishing platforms are built in South Carolina and are second to none in stability, speed, and performance overall. These catamaran designs are engineered not only to get you to the fish fast, but comfortably too. Years of refining designs and pioneering the modern performance fishing catamaran is why Freeman Boat Works is the #1 choice for some of the biggest names in the fishing industry. If it's long runs in the Gulf or the Carolinas, or days you can go fishing in South Florida when most center consoles stay at the dock, Freeman Boat Works is at the forefront in all categories. For more information on Freeman Boat Works and their 6 available models, visit www.freemanboatworks.com. Redefine your expectations.
In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, I'll tell you what, we are back in the studio here. Trilogy Outdoors podcast studio and over here at Pond Road Storage. And this afternoon, kind of an impromptu podcast, I must say. But when my good friend Ben Wiggins says that he's free for a phone call, I got to pick the phone up and call him. And Ben, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon. I know the topic is not one that we are excited to talk about, but one that I feel like, you're an expert on, unfortunately, but real quick, Ben, let's talk. Let's catch up with you. How's life been for Ben Wiggins?
Well, first, thanks, English, for having me on. I consider you a great friend too. Anytime to speak with you is an awesome opportunity. Unfortunately, it's not the best of circumstances this conversation is going to be surrounded by. But other than that topic, I'm doing well. We've had so much fun. Spending time with you down there during the fishing rodeo, and just a pleasure to be speaking with you again. Well,
we're excited. We're excited that you got to come down, and it's nice to have you back on here talking. And again, we're talking about a topic that, we you and I were texting with Johnny Savage earlier, and I'd love to have him on. I know he's probably busy, with his boats and everything else right now. But to have you on is a pleasure and an honor. And, real quick, we'll talk about the situation. So this gentleman, Jeff Kell, and I'll enlighten you because I know you weren't really familiar with it, but Jeff Kell on Saturday afternoon at 4 o'clock out of Southport, again, don't hold me to any of this, please, except the fact that the boat has been found, and we know that this afternoon. But he left to go wahoo fishing in a 32 Cape Horn out of North Carolina. The stories are that Jeff is a completely capable angler, boatsman, mariner, and was capable of handling the boat and everything else in whatever conditions. So as of Sunday, he had not turned up, come back in. They put a missing persons out for him. Then they contacted the Coast Guard, blah, blah, blah. And you know how that goes. They contacted everybody and had everybody on the search for him. And basically, the last 2 days, basically 72 hours, have been spent looking for Jeff. And unfortunately, this afternoon, we got the news that his boat was located 70-ish miles off of Hatteras. And I'm going to share the picture on our page of the boat. And apparently, this picture came from the boat that found the boat. And you looked at the picture too, Ben. I mean, did you notice the outrigger? Did you notice how that one outrigger on the, I think it's the port side, the outrigger was not fully, what I call it was not fully locked into place. In other words, it wasn't raised up. It was swung out a little bit, but it wasn't locked up, I didn't think. Did you?
Yeah. And one of the first things I did when you sent that to me was, I was just leaving work here at Shaw Air Force Base, and I pulled over and I looked at that picture. And I thought, well, at first it looked like the two outriggers were crossed over, like they were turned all the way inboard. But then I said, no, that's just because of the parallax, view that we're looking at here. But
right.
I saw that the port side was not, and I also tried to determine through the picture which motor looked like it may have still been just maybe idling ahead slowly because, it was leaving no wake.
Yep.
Like you said, it could have run out of gas. But knowing that's a Cape Horn, a buddy of mine has one, just got one about that size. And depending on how much fuel he had when he left Southport and how fast, he ran, I mean, he's probably got a good close to a 200-gallon or more fuel tank. I would think at least that much. I mean, I got a 25-foot Scout and I got 134 gallons.
Yeah, I think I heard it's either 250 or 300 gallons in that boat.
Okay, so
plenty of gas.
He might have still had some kind of, motor still at idle.
Yep.
But like I said, I'm speculating. I don't want to do that. But, as I was looking at those pictures and you were telling me what you were telling me through your texting with Johnny responding, I thought, how horrible. And also at the same time, what parameters were laid in place before he left? Did he let someone know where he was going? Did he have an EPIRB? Did he have a PFD on? If you're going out in the ocean by yourself, that's number one mistake there. You should never, I think, ever go out on the ocean by yourself. Knowing what the currents do there. I mean, English, from our story, excuse me, when we went missing last August, the four of us, we drifted 28 miles in a 2-knot current.
Isn't that crazy? I know.
It is.
The mileage that y'all floated, I mean, is just unbelievable. And most people don't realize 28 miles that they floated in that current. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I don't want to make this about my situation.
No. But
I just want to say this. My prayers, I immediately prayed when you asked there beside the road for his family and that some kind of, positive closure would be found, that they'd find him and find him alive. I didn't know that he'd gone fishing on Saturday. That definitely puts the odds not in his favor. And I hate to say it.
Right.
But I mean, I've been there. I was out on the water for almost, 17 hours drifting with my three buddies. And, it just made me think about, as I was listening, to the text or reading the text you were sending me, what I would have done differently, had I had the chance to go back and start that day all over back in August. But certainly not knowing what the circumstances were for is his name Jeff, you said?
Jeff Kale. Yes, sir.
Jeff Kale. I mean, there's just so much, if anything comes from this chat with you, English, it's the preparation that has to go in place, the things that have to be done before you leave, the dock and head out, especially into the Gulf Stream, because the currents change, the water temperatures change out there in your favor, but a lot of things can go awry very quickly. And being by yourself, you have no one there to call upon except the Lord Almighty when you fall overboard, if that's the case. And hopefully the family, I just feel my heart just bleeds for the family. I hope that they get some kind of closure through this.
Well, you said it earlier before we started recording. You said flashbacks, and I don't want to call on you every time a boater goes missing, but I have you. I hold you in high regard. You know that, and we both understand that a higher power had a lot to do with you surviving.
Oh, yes.
And
oh, yeah.
I think that happened for a reason, and it may be the reason that I have you on here today. It may be the fact that we sit here and discuss things that should have been done differently, and preparation, and we all, and no matter what we do in life, we always can say that hindsight's always 2020. Well, it is, but you and I know a little side story to this now that we're not going to discuss, but we do know a side story to this, and
Hmm.
you and I both in our godly hearts know some things that could have been done differently
Sure.
regarding to that. But you know, preparation is huge, and I try to tell people I've had friends in the past that bought boats, and I'm talking 22 footers. Okay, I'm not talking like 35 and 34 footers, which still,
Hmm.
are at the mercy of the ocean. But
Hmm.
they would, call me from Lancaster, and I hope he's not listening because he knows who he is if he's listening. But he would call me at 5 o'clock on an afternoon and say, "Hey, I got free tomorrow. I'm going to go offshore tomorrow. I'm going to the Gulf Stream. Okay, have you looked at the weather? No, I was just wondering. Can you tell me what it is? Yeah, I wouldn't go. Well, man, I think we're going to try it, blah, 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 this and that." And he would have two people or three people that didn't know what they were doing. They'd get on the boat,
Yeah.
they'd come down and go out. And
Yeah.
all day long, all I would spend is waiting for this person to call me and let me know they were safe. I mean,
Yeah.
had no EPIRB on the boat. I'll just say it. Had no EPIRB on the boat. Did have life jackets. Did have life jackets. Did have a working radio, VHF, but no EPIRB and no
Yeah.
locator. There's you don't have to have the most expensive EPIRB to have a great locator, and that is everything from the little spot. Up to I've got Garmin's InReach, which is awesome because I can text and use it as a satellite for my phone, but
Yep.
also it serves the EPIRB purpose. If I go overboard, it's with me. If if
Yep.
if the boat goes overboard, it's going in the water and it's getting wet and it's going to notify people. So, but all
Mhm.
those little things were things that he never took into consideration because all he was thinking about was getting offshore and going fishing. But
Yeah.
in the blink of an eye, that ocean can change, and it can be a pop up storm. It can be a number of things. It can
Yep.
be it can be private or captain air, air by the captain. But anything can change out there, and having
Yes.
all the things in place. And I preach this on the radio show. I do. This time of the year, we always have DNR on with us, but we always preach float plan, file a float plan. And
Yes.
I'm not talking about, saying to your friend, "Hey, I'm going to head out to the Georgetown Hole." Okay, well, like where else do you think you might go? Like I think things like that are important. Like if you
Absolutely.
go there and strike out, you're going to go north to this
Yep.
area. Give
Yep.
people a real good float plan. It maximizes your chance of being found and recovered, and
Hmm.
it minimizes the opportunities for other lives to be lost out there searching for you.
Yep.
And there's a huge expense in recovering people out of the water, as you well know,
Oh yeah.
from all the resources that were used to locate you guys. And it just makes sense that you do these small little preparations to be ready. And there's many more things we could talk about. And I know you mentioned earlier that you had some things and thought about things that you would have done differently. I mean, would you share maybe one or two of those, or that you
Well.
would have done differently that day? Because I know you were. I mean, you were probably excited about your diving trip,
Hmm.
and you have dove plenty of times before, so it wasn't
Yes.
anything new to you.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Here's what I hope, in this conversation with you, Inglis, is that whoever hears this will take to heart the importance and the absolute, necessity to do what I'll share with you, and also what we didn't do, because one thing the great equalizer is the ocean when you're in it. And I've been on the ocean all over the world. My Navy career of 24 years, I've dove literally in almost every ocean on the planet except Antarctic. And when I was in it, I had a huge respect for it. But every time I dove with the Navy, I had a dive plan, and we dove the plan that we had briefed previously. Well, that going to August 13th was the first mistake. And
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really spoken about this on the air. to anybody. I've spoken to some small groups. I've spoken to some schools here in the Sumter area.
Right.
And so your viewers know, or your listeners know, I live in North Carolina and I work in Shaw Air Force Base, so I got quite the commute. But I'm here for 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, depending on the schedule.
Right.
But here's what we did not do. If you want to talk about that, here's what I would have done differently. So the morning that we went out on that dive, I noticed that there was a hurried activity on the boat. I don't need to mention names, but there was a hurried cadence to get in the water for whatever reason. Well, once we got on dive station, we were 53 miles off of Holden Beach,
right,
diving the ledges out there, and I should have spoken up. So that was my first mistake. English, I didn't speak up. I should have said, "Hey, we need to slow down and take our time because there's no hurry. Whatever's down there is going to still be there." Well, that was mistake number one. Mistake number two: all 4 of us got in the water at the same time. That was so not the thing to do. What that did was it left my friend on the boat as the captain with one of the other divers, adult divers, young sons, who really weren't versed in, watching for divers coming up on the surface.
Right.
It just left my buddy alone to spot us when we popped up. Well, when we did, we were so far from the boat, he couldn't even see us. And I'll tell you what, I don't know about Jeff, who just went missing, but I can tell you this: when I came up and saw the distance of the boat continue to increase further and further and further away until later, and 2.5, 3 hours later, when the boat went over the horizon, then that feeling is something that you cannot put into words. It's the most sinking, not to be cheeky about it, but it was the worst gut punch I've ever had in my life.
Right.
And I knew we were in a full survival mode. So the things I would have done differently was, we got in such a hurry that day, all 4 of us jumped in the water without a EPIRB, and they were sitting on the dive bags on the boat. And that's what hurried activity will do. It will cause you to cascade mistakes into a domino effect that puts you in the predicament that we eventually found ourselves in. So those are the main components of what we did wrong. But at the same time, when I knew that we were in a full survival mode, I told them just that. I said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do." And I started saying, "We're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this." And everybody complied. And, we had 4 spear guns too, English. I don't know if you remember me telling you.
I do.
I said, "Look, we need to get rid of 2 of these, because if one of us accidentally turns too quickly and pokes one of the other, or hits the butt of the stock in the nose or face, or skins somebody, and we put a drop of blood in the water, we are done."
Yep.
So we dropped 2 of the spear guns. We dropped our weight belts. We dropped some of the tanks. I kept one tank to keep inflating our BCs, which thankfully, you're not going to dive in the ocean or anywhere without a BC, a buoyancy compensator. So
right.
I kept my tank, and I said, I'll fill our BCs if we get later into the day and evening, and the air starts to weep out of these, we'll use those. So there's certain things you do and certain things you don't do. You keep the most survivor gear that you have available to you. A dive knife strapped to your leg, which I think we all did. I know I did. And luckily, the thing that saved us in the end was my God. First of all, we prayed out loud on the water that God would, send rescuers. And when the Coast Guard C-130 finally came over at 1:00 in the morning, my buddy Luke had his dive light, which also flashed SOS, and that's what the Coast Guard captain of the 130, the pilot, saw and turned towards us. That's what caught his eye, was that flashlight. So a flashlight is something you should take with you, even if you're going out in the daytime, just because you just need a flashlight, and you need a good flashlight too. One that maybe it's rechargeable like we had, or maybe you have, a NiCad, battery that's sealed or whatever. But, good gear is so important, and filing a plan, letting people know where you're going to go and where you may end up if you don't find success, like you said. It's just so much that's important, and letting people know. And to go by yourself, I don't think, after what I had happen to me, I would never go out on the ocean alone for any reason.
I'm on this page with you, and this is the thing where, first and foremost, I'm I'm going to go on the pretenses that someone from the Kale family or a close friend may possibly listen to this podcast at some point. And I want them
Hmm.
to understand that I am not beating up Jeff Kale for going by himself fishing.
Right.
And I don't want that. It's not about that. I mean, both of us,
No.
we're not about that. But what we are about is the fact that I've spent hours and hours and hours on the ocean. I have a limitation that I'll do by myself in the boat. And I know what my boat does. I can handle myself in the boat. I can handle my boat. I know what I'm doing. But there's a
Hmm.
limitation because when you throw in fishing and offshore trolling in particular, you're
Hmm.
talking about a lot of moving parts. I mean,
Yes.
outrigger,
Yes.
and I'm gonna say this, and everybody's gonna say, "Oh, sure, you're saying that." Outrigger was the first thing that I said was going to be the cause of an issue. And
Yeah.
I said it because it is the one thing, I heard he was high speed. I heard he was going to go high speeding for Wahoo. That was the story. And
Hmm.
if so, then you don't use your outriggers. Typically, we don't. But,
Right.
from the looks of the picture, you see that the outrigger, well, obviously one of them was deployed in some way. Um, it just never doesn't look like it made it to full set, full location where he wanted it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. But there's just so many little things. I mean, here's the deal: a wahoo has razor sharp teeth. How
Yeah.
about if you go to sling him in the boat by yourself
Yeah.
and he brushes your leg? Those teeth cut in there and they hit a vein. They hit a main
Yeah.
artery. They hit
Yeah.
something. I mean, not having somebody else on the boat, is just crazy. And I think that we're going to learn more of a backstory to this probably down the road. It doesn't sound like he is known for fishing by himself.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see that. But my friend Wendell Barnett, who I do hope listens to this podcast, is a commercial fisherman that wahoo fishes by himself
Hmm.
90% of the time.
Hmm.
He has every safety device that you can imagine on his boat.
Hmm.
He has made it back 100% of the times, and he catches a lot of fish. And more power to Wendell, and he knows what he's doing. But I'm just saying, I don't think that it's smart for an average person, albeit myself. And I'm average. I mean, because
Hmm.
when it comes to hours, I mean, our friend Johnny Savage, I can't imagine the hours he's got on the water. But when it comes to hours, like I would much rather have all my hours counted as me being in the boat and not out of the boat. And
Yes.
if I've got somebody with me, a little slip up like that, like I told you, I fell off the boat putting the outriggers out myself. I had a
Yes.
person on the boat that was capable of turning the boat to come back and get me, and bam, we were done. We
Yeah.
were good. I was in the boat, dried off. We laughed about it, and you know, I thought, we've joked about it since then. Is what would you have done if you were by yourself? I would have tried to get to one of my rigs that was out because I always put my long riggers out, my long lines out first. I would have
Hmm.
tried to swim over to one and gotten my hand somehow or another in the way of that. And you know what? At least got hung up to it, where I could attempt to pull myself in. Of course, I don't know that the drag would have allowed me to pull myself to the boat, but maybe heck, if I was attached to the line or something. But all situations where you never know what you're going to do
No.
until you're in
Well,
that position.
you've got a healthy respect for the rigger situation, the outrigger that
Yep.
you mentioned, because you've gone overboard trying to get one set.
Yep.
Uh, you know, I mean, at the very least, I mean, my gosh, I've been on the water, with some fishermen off the Outer Banks back in my early Navy days in the early '80s, and I've seen what the ocean can do. I've been on a boat before where you could not let go of holding on the entire day.
Yep.
While we were out there, I still to this day question it. And it was probably back in 1983, but you know, uh, you step up on the gunnel to make a little adjustment, just like you said, just to lower your arm, your set handle to turn out your outrigger to the outboard,
Right.
and you let go for a second. Just at that second, you take a swell or whatever, and then you fall over the side. It just can happen in the blink of an eye, like you said. And I guess I'm speaking from experience, and you're speaking
Yeah,
from
you are.
experience. A lot of guys can tell you, hey, it's no big deal. That's something I've done a million times. Well, a million and one time is the one that you don't account for when you slip, or what may happen is just it's never planned. And
No.
whether you fall overboard or you fall inside the boat and hit your head, I mean, that's another outcome. You just have to have somebody with you. I don't see the wisdom in going out by yourself. And I don't know this fella. I'm so sorry that this has happened. Like I said,
Yeah,
I don't
to
want people
him.
to say, oh, you don't know him. And I don't.
Exactly.
But
And here's the thing, like I mean, we're not beating him up at all. Like I mean, obviously, like
no,
I'm sitting here and as we're talking, like I do remember one thing I said. Next time I went out on a charter after that incident happened, I never had the boat in gear when I put the riggers out. I
smart.
always had it in neutral. I'd put the riggers out and then begin fishing. But so many of us get out there, we get there, we're ready, we're pumped. We're like, all right, let's get the long line out. Let's get these out. All right, I'll get on the
Mhm.
riggers. I'll get the riggers out. And now I've got great younger fishing partners that are awesome, and they hop right up there and do it. And I'm so blessed to have them that
Yeah,
I don't have to do it. But again, it's situations that if you've never been in, you don't know how dire it can be. And
yeah,
you think about just slipping over. Like the other thing is, and I tell people this all the time, like, hey man, you getting back there to go to the bathroom off the back of the boat, dude. Like you need something to hold on to. I mean,
yeah.
it gets slippery back there.
Yes, it
You
does.
got waves you can't control. So
Yeah,
it's crazy, but
yeah,
again, I know I really wanted to get you on here just to talk about the situation and what's in what was in Jeff's mind, what's in Jeff's mind. Let's hope it's what's in Jeff's mind. Let's hope he's out there floating right now and that somebody is in his path coming to find him. And just like you and Johnny, that the good Lord is going to intervene and bring him back to
yes,
serve a bigger purpose.
yes.
Um, and but the thought that as you watch that boat go away, and you described it so well in the first podcast you did with me, and knowing that boat's gone, like watching it go away, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy. And for those that are listening in that may not understand Ben's story, Ben was last August. He was on a dive trip out of Holden Beach, North Carolina, and was a part of a group of three, right? Wasn't it three of y'all that were left, or was it four?
Four, including me.
Yeah, four that were left offshore after a diving incident, and left for nearly 18 hours. Am I right? It's somewhere.
Well, right around 16 hours and 45 minutes from the time we went in the water till the time we were picked up. The Coast Guard,
Yeah,
spotted us just on the last pass of the night. And I intend to write a book called just that, The Last Pass. They were on their last pass with the C-130 when they saw our light and turned towards us. And that's when everything, the sequence of events that happened from there were what led to the rescue.
yep,
But yeah, it was the boat going over the horizon. The afternoon, probably around. I think the point of the day when we saw the boat was right around about 2:30,
mm,
maybe between one and two. I don't remember. To be honest with you, I have a good friend who's a former agency guy who's done stuff that's we can't even talk about.
right,
And he said, Benny, because you're going to have linear memory about that. You're going to have times that you're going to try to recall that you're just not going to remember.
right,
And he is so right. But the thing I want to say, English, is more than what happened to us, which was an absolute miracle. We were out there and there was all kinds of comments on as we're sitting there, the boat's still within sight, but quite a distance away. Some of the comments centered around what could have happened to the boat captain. And I just said, no more negative comments, and pray without ceasing right now that we'll be rescued, because we will be rescued. I put in their minds at that moment a positive outcome, and just fed that throughout, the coming hours, that we were going to be rescued. Because I'll tell you, a negative comment in a situation like that is like cancer. It will eat you alive, and it diminishes your chances of being rescued so much so that I wouldn't even know how to speak,
Right.
to the percentage of people who are, but we were rescued, and I just praise God for that. And that's been the great ending to that story. But
I don't know that the story has ended, and I'll tell you why. Because you mentioned it. I mean, look, you're on here with me.
yes.
You've been to some of those great schools in Sumter area to talk to
Mhm.
those kids. I mean, I do. I feel strongly. Just as Johnny does, Johnny Savage, I feel strongly you have a great story, an incredible story to tell, and I can't wait for you to get it on paper. You know?
Yeah, I've got it mostly written down. Actually, to be honest with you, and I don't want to make this about me. Here's what I want to do. My ultimate goal in this English and telling this to the different audiences who have the chance to hear it
Yep.
is, listen, you're going to find yourself in life in situations where all hope is gone or it's evaporating right before your eyes. But my faith and my steadfast belief that God was going to rescue us is what got us through. I believe, as sure as I'm talking to you now, there was no reason we should have been rescued according to the people who do the statistics. I mean, the Coast Guard Sector Wilmington SAR mission coordinator, Stephen Sawyer, was a great guy who's become a great friend of mine. He said, Ben, you guys had about a 1 in 50 million chance of being found.
Yep. Well, listen, I don't want you to go anywhere. I want you to hang on because we have another guest who has been in a similar situation to yours. And you finally got to meet him here at the rodeo banquet, and that is Stephen Goldfinch. Senator's got a little bit before
Yes,
he's got to go to dinner. So if you'll hold on 1 second, we're
absolutely.
gonna get a two-way call going here. So just hold 1 second, and
Okay.
we'll get him on. Let's see how this works. I think I can do that. Yep, there we go.
Yo.
Hey, buddy, hang on 1 second. Let me merge Ben in real quick with us. All right, there we go. Do I have Ben and the senator on here?
You got me.
I'm here as well. Hey, Senator, great to hear your voice again.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, man. So we've been, Stephen, we've been talking a little bit about the situation with the boater in North Carolina that went out by himself. And what was yours? Yours was a 32, wasn't it, or was it 34? What was yours? Your
It
Cape
was that
Horn.
same boat, a 32 XS.
How many gallons are in the tank? How big was the tank? That was the question we had.
The tank was 270 gallons or
Okay. So
so.
right between 250 and 300. So they're saying that when they found it today, there's been some say. I mean, they're saying that the boat was still in gear with one motor going. That it was in gear. You think? I mean, I guess since Saturday afternoon, if he was at trolling at idle speed, I mean, it would still have gas in it, wouldn't it? If he didn't run too much out of it on the way out there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where he ran to. But
Southport to
if you,
Blackjack was the target area. That's what he had said he was going.
so I don't know what it is out of Southport. What's that, 50 miles?
Yeah, I
60
think it's
miles?
50, 55. Yeah, that's what Ben and I were talking about.
All right. Well, that's just a one-way trip, right? So
Yep.
one-way trip, 50 miles, count on 1.3 to 1.5 miles per gallon to get there in that boat.
So that's
And
roughly 75, right?
yep.
So 70.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's very possible the boat still, assuming it was topped off, the boat was still had plenty of fuel in it.
Yep. Yep. I think so too. Well, so we were talking about it. Stephen, I know you've done some crazy things. Have you ever been offshore to the Gulf Stream by yourself?
Many times.
Have you really?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, many
I
times.
should not have given you any more credit than I did.
But all when I was younger. As a teenager, I fished a lot by myself. But what I would always are we
Yeah, we're
recording this?
recording. Yes, sir. We're recording.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, as a teenager, I fished a lot by myself, and even in the college, I fished a lot by myself. But what I would always do when I fished offshore by myself, we had a 30-foot hydrosport, and what I would always do when I fished offshore by myself is I'd tie a 20-foot dock rope to my leg or to my ankle and tie it to the kill switch. And so, when you're dragging baits or getting an outrigger out or leaning over to gaff a fish and you fall overboard, you got about, 15 foot a free line before the kill switch gets pulled, and then
Yep.
you swim back to the boat. It's no big deal.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, if you're putting an outrigger out and you fall overboard when that boat's in gear and you don't have anything attached to the kill switch and you're 60 miles offshore,
Yeah.
you got a big issue, man. Like a really big issue.
And you looked at the picture too. You've seen the picture. My thoughts are looking at it, and Ben said the same thing. Ben said he looked at it the first time and thought they were crossed, but does it not look like that port outrigger is like turned out, but it's not kicked up, like almost like he had that step? He might have been at that point trying to put it up.
Well, they definitely look inconsistent.
Yeah.
I didn't forensically
Yeah.
look at it, but
Yeah.
as I recall looking at it, they definitely look inconsistent, which tells me, he was messing with at least one of them at some point in time. And when you're fishing by yourself, usually what you'll do is you'll get rods out and at least get something trolling, and then you start working on the stuff that takes you a little longer,
Right.
like get an outrigger out. And then, once you get the outrigger out, then you'll grab the line that's already out, you'll pull it into position, stick it in a clip, put it out,
Yep.
right? So highly possible he got all the lines out, then started working on the outriggers and fell in when he was putting the outriggers out.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. And I had the incident where I fell off. Fortunately, I had someone that could turn the boat around and come back to me that knew how to turn autopilot off, which I had on the boat at that time. But they did turn it off and turned around and came back and got me. Bam. But I mean, like you said, I mean, you've got no time. If that boat's in gear and it's running 7 knots or 7 miles an hour or whatever trolling, and you hit the water, you can't get over that boat quick enough. It's impossible.
I'm looking at the picture right now, fellas, and I see he's got 2 downrigger poles, port and starboard. He's got a transom pole. I can't tell if there's any line on, obviously, but and he's got a couple of poles up in the rocket launcher. So
Yep.
I don't know if he's got lines going out with those too. But the way the 2 outriggers look, they're not deployed to the position where they would be,
Fishing
line.
yet. Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Ben and I were talking about it. I think there's more that'll come out of this story. Unfortunately, I think there are some underlying stuff that has not been made public yet, and but it's terrible. And I said it earlier. I said, there's a lot of boaters, and Stephen, you got more hours than I could imagine on a boat and on the water, but there are a lot of people that could not and should not risk that by themselves. I mean, there's just too many different things. I mean, you, even as good as you were and in as good a shape as you were, you made plans for the opportunity that you could happen to fall over. I
you
just
just
think
should never do it.
no, you should never do it. Thank you. I mean,
No,
that's
I mean
it.
the only people that do that are stupid kids, and
And you were one of
I've been a
those.
stupid. Yeah, no, I mean, look, I've been a stupid kid. I've done a lot of stupid things over the years, and
I'm guilty too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, right, we're all guilty of being stupid kids at one point in time, but there comes a time when you say, "Oh, enough's enough." It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're it's great weather and you can't find a buddy to go fish with,
You want to go.
You know what? You got responsibilities now. It's time to hang it up.
Yeah,
You just say can't go today.
no doubt.
I don't want to impugn the lost or
Yes.
worse.
Yep, that's what we were talking about.
But for me, I'll only speak for me. For me, it's not worth an offshore trip by myself anymore. It's just not worth it, and I don't think it's as fun. And honestly, I mean, what fun is it to go fishing by yourself and not have anybody to share your experiences with? So for me, I don't do it, and I wouldn't even try it anymore.
No, I'm with you completely.
I think the fellowship of fishing with your friends is something that is more important than just catching any fish. I mean, like I used to tell my 2 boys when we would duck hunting when they were younger, listen, I said, boys, we don't need to shoot any ducks. The point of us going today is so we can spend time together, see all that, that we've been so blessed with in terms of where we can hunt and see some of these beautiful birds on the wing. Well, the same thing applies to fishing. You don't have to catch fish, although we want to catch fish. And my gosh, I love having some fresh mahi tacos, but you know what? It's all about the fellowship and the time spent. And I just want to say this, and I'll let you guys have it from here. I just want to say that my heart and my prayers are with the family now. I'm sure as yours are as well.
Yeah.
That, that some kind of peace and strength will come through this, and that God will just pour out his Holy Spirit on this family because they need it right now. I'm sure they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
so I had a friend reach out to me earlier today, and this is where, I mean, I'd been seeing a little bit about it, but I really had not studied it much and listened to the story much. But had a friend reach out to me today, Dieter Melhorn. He's got a great podcast, by the way, on YouTube, folks. Dieter Melhorn Fishing. Dieter reached out to me earlier and with some questions pertaining to currents and everything else because he's not a big offshore fisherman. But was asking some questions, and he texted me well before the story came out public that the boat had been seen and located. And Dieter, was adamant, like, why would you go that far by yourself? Like, what makes somebody want to do that? Like, it can't be fun. Like you said, a celebration with friends about a catch, or as the last time Stephen and I went, the celebration of watching somebody reel up a rod from 900 feet down and cheering them on with no fish on it or with a little fish on it is what it's all about. I mean, that's where the stories and the fun come from. But, we can only hope that maybe he's got a PFD on. Maybe he, found something out there. He's floating on it and that they're able to find him. But as Ben said, as the days go by and the clock ticks, we all know. And Ben, did you ever, when you were here, did you and Stephen get to talk about Stephen's incident about, being dumb and young when his dad told him, do not go diving with an individual, and Stephen decided to go diving with that individual, despite the fact that Mr. Steve said, do not go diving with that individual? Did you ever hear that story?
He did share the story with me during the fishing rodeo.
Yeah.
And it was incredible how he was able to be rescued that afternoon. And I just find it just beyond my comprehension that a man would leave a young boy out on a dive and just say, well, I just, whatever he said.
I know.
I don't remember exactly, but I thought he was dead or something. I think is what.
Isn't that what he said? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he said. And I'll tell you one more thing, and I agree with you, Ben. Looking back on it, as an adult, thinking about my son in that situation, it makes me angry. As a kid, I had a very different perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit hard to explain, but it was almost like it was my fault.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Well, that's probably the tendency is like we tend to blame ourselves. Yeah. Maybe for the decision, first and foremost, to go diving with that fella. But I mean, you were a younger man then. You were in your teens when that happened, right?
Yeah.
And that's I wouldn't be too hard on myself if I were you about that.
I wouldn't either.
You know what? When I first wanted to go and be a diver and then join the Navy, I couldn't wait to get qualified and go out and dive on my own. But I never did it because the safety parameters that were basically ingrained and inculcated in my brain as a student of the Navy school never left me, and I just could never see not going with somebody to enjoy it with, because I mean, obviously diving is a very high risk evolution, not so much as fishing by yourself, but
yep.
I wouldn't beat myself up too much, Stephen, about what happened, because you weren't in control of the boat. If you had been in control of the boat, maybe that would have been totally different. But
exactly.
Yeah, I'll say something else. So I dove yesterday.
I was gonna bring that up. I wanted you to talk about your dive.
Yeah, I dove yesterday, and I was in a 7 mil. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it was cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't out at the break, but I was at 120 feet of water. So I probably wasn't 5 or 6 degrees off of where he was.
Right.
When he fell in. I mean, I guess we can only assume he fell in.
Right.
When you say 5 or 6 degrees, you mean water temperature, right?
Yeah, water temperature. Yeah, okay. And in a 7 mil, by the end of the third dive, I was cold. Okay, mm-hmm. So that I'm just giving you a little indication there. I mean,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly not in a 7 mil wetsuit.
No.
Nope.
He's yeah. I mean, the water temperature was 63.5 degrees where I was.
Ooh.
Wow. Are you in the
Um,
Gulf Stream, Stephen?
we were just shy. We were probably 10 miles shy of the Gulf Stream. So he, like I said, he might have been 68 where he was,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
but still, your body, it can't take days of that. It
No.
can't take hours of that.
No.
No,
So,
I did.
I
I
hope,
didn't. I didn't think about hypothermia.
yeah, I mean, I hope and pray for him, but it's
Yeah.
bad. It's bad news at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was out with those fellows guys back in August, the water temperature was 84.5, and we were 53 miles southeast off of Holden Beach. When we drifted and were finally picked up, the Coast Guard's SAR mission coordinator, Stephen Sawyer, said, "Ben, you guys were 10 miles from the Gulf Stream," which would have been a good thing, actually, because the water temperature would have gone from 84 to 94 degrees.
Yeah.
But the current would have picked up from 2 knots to 5.5 to 7,
Yeah.
depending on where you hit it. And knowing that, and I'll tell you this, guys, when I dove that day, I was in just a shorty, a little 3.2 shorty. All the other guys were wearing full, 3 or I think it was 3 mil that they were wearing. I had hypothermia before the sunset that day. I started shaking, my teeth started chattering, and I was like, oh my gosh, the sun hasn't even set, so
Yeah.
it was
Wow.
84 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
That was
lose
after
you lose
6
it
hours
quick.
in the water.
Yeah, you lose it quick. 68 to 70. I would imagine he was at 68 degrees probably up there where he was.
Well,
That's very cold for the body to
that
be in
is.
for an hour, much less 12 hours. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna keep him, his family, and all the people out there searching in our prayers and thoughts. And real quick, Ben, do you turkey hunt at all?
Oh gosh, I don't, but I've always wanted to go.
Well, all right,
That
Senator.
that basically tells the experienced turkey hunter, don't take Ben. He doesn't. But I know
No,
this.
no. You
Benjamin
don't want to
Franklin
go.
wanted to make turkeys the national bird, and they've got eyesight as good as, if not better than eagles. So.
They do. Stephen, you got a turkey story to share?
I've got some non-turkey stories to share.
Those are the ones.
Yeah, we killed a turkey. Rick and I killed a turkey last weekend, I guess it was.
Yep.
I called one in for him. Actually called 4 in, 1 3-year-old bird and 3 2-year-old birds. And he killed the 3-year-old bird. It was
At least he
it
shot
was
the
good
right
hunt.
one.
It was a good hunt. It wasn't an early morning hunt. We killed him at 9 o'clock in the morning, so we had plenty of interaction. So that was good.
Am I not mistaken that my little buddy Trip refused to wake up that morning?
He refused to wake up.
I gave him.
My 8-year-old son,
I was
yep,
over at your house earlier and gave him a hard time about that.
Yep, I'd taken him the day before, and we didn't get one. And the next day, he was sleepy and he didn't want to get up. And that's the day we killed one. So shame on him. I told him. So that's what you got. You learn an important lesson. You got to get up. You got to be present to win.
You got to be present to win. That is the truth. That is the truth. Yep. Well, I had a great time over there earlier chatting with him and Russ, and they were out trying to get dinner, just so you know. They were armed with a Red Ryder and a beautiful knife that Tripp got for, I guess Russ was going to clean whatever they killed for dinner, and they were unsuccessful, and no animals were harmed, but they were having a blast, and it's just so great to see these kids getting out and doing stuff like that and loving it. And Renee and I were talking about it, like, you're going to be able to turn the two of them loose out there at 8 in the morning and ring the dinner bell at 6 in the afternoon, and they'll come running up muddy, dirty, and who knows what they'll have to eat. Out there at the place. But man, listen, I want to thank both of y'all. I know Steven's busy. I know Ben, I know you're obviously in town working up in Sumter, but I know you're busy as well, and I really appreciate you guys sitting down and taking the time to chat with us, and in this abbreviated edition of Trilogy Outdoors, but I thought it was something that we really need to talk about. And I do believe that every year, we need to really discuss and talk safety and float plans and everything else as we get into this season. And Stephen, you made your first trip offshore yesterday, and but people are starting to head offshore, and Ben mentioned some great, great different safety devices that we all need on the boat. And I think, continually over the next couple of weeks, we need to bring it up and reiterate that filing a float plan, make sure you got an EPIRB, make sure you are out there with a good plan in the boat. Make sure you've got capable equipment. Get your boat fixed. If you got issues, get it fixed. But all those things are important in this time of the year, sharing it. And I thank you guys both for joining me. Stephen, is there one last word? How was the banquet Saturday night? I heard it was a great crowd and raised a lot of money. The CCA banquet is what we're talking about. Was this Saturday night here for the Waccamaw chapter. And unfortunately, I missed it, but it was a
great crowd. Great crowd. One more thought. I agree on all those points on safety. One of the things that I've started doing in the last few years is also I put my satellite messenger in my pocket on my person when I'm, so I use it and then, I let it go through and then it goes in the pocket on my person. That's easier in the wintertime than it is in the summertime, no doubt, because you got on a bunch of clothes in the wintertime, so there's lots of pockets. Summertime, you got a pair of shorts, but if everybody did that, most people nowadays have either a spot or you got an inReach.
inReach, yep.
Both of them are waterproof to a certain extent. Certainly a dunk under the surface. If you did that, that would give you a big leg up on getting recovered pretty quickly. And so highly recommend that, as well as the other stuff that y'all have already mentioned. As far as the banquet goes, great crowd. Inglis, it looked full to me.
Yep.
We donated, Inglis donated a safari.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep. And it sold. I don't remember exactly what it got, but it got a good number.
Did you know the person that bought it by chance?
I could not see him. He was
Okay.
way over on the other side of the tent. This is one of those giant tents. He was way over on the other side of the tent,
Yep.
so I couldn't see who it was. And I didn't ask Scott, but numbers sounded like they were, during the live auction, and it sounded like the numbers were high and good, and so
That's great.
I would call it a success.
Renee said y'all tried hard to get us that oyster roast, but that somebody wanted it really, really bad.
Yeah, we bid on the oyster roast, and somebody outbid us on that. We bid on an Argentinian dove hunt.
Oh,
and somebody outbid us on that, and we bid on some concrete curbing for our driveway at the farm.
Oh,
and we won that. So we did win something.
So that's gonna go out at the barn dominium.
Yeah, to go out at the barn dominium.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, listen, man, thank you guys for once again taking the time. And Stephen, best of luck this week up there, keeping everybody straight at the State House. Ben, I hope you have a enjoyable week, my friend. And then thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to chat with me. And, let's again keep the Kale family in our prayers and all those involved in this. And, hey, we'll be back next week. The Senator's winding down. We're getting close to the end of session. And we'll get him back in the studio some right before he goes to Africa. But, you're going to find us every week talking fins, fur, and feather here on Trilogy Outdoors Podcast. Hey, y'all, Captain E here with Southern Anglers Radio Show. And I'll tell you what, I am super excited to be down in the Pond Road Storage in Murrells Inlet. I'm located within moments of either going to the river or going to put in the inlet. I'm keeping that Key West 250 Bay Reef indoors, and it is staying in great shape. I only have to wash the boat once now, and that's when I put it up and not before I take it to go fishing. But you can get incredible options here. 20-foot wide, 50-foot deep with 14-foot roll-up doors, a most state-of-the-art security system to keep you that peace of mind on all your products that you may keep in these storage buildings. You've got climate controlled or non-climate controlled outdoor storage for trailers, RVs, and such. You can't go wrong. 843-855-7375. Give Chris Collins a good call down there. We can't wait. We love broadcasting down here inside the storage building, and you need to come down here and check it out too. Come down. Palm Road Storage, right here in Myrtle's Inlet. Michelob Ultra and Myrtle Beach Wholesaler, Southern Crown Partners Incorporated, know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Mick Ultra's crisp and refreshing taste in hand. It's important to remember to drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or to designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Michelob Ultra salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also, don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.